I'm cutting to the chase and telling you why an IVA is actually worth getting this year, as well as how it could be actually a big mistake. Hey guys, it's Scott here from MoneyNerd, and today I'm delving into a pretty simple sounding question. Is an IVA worth it, or are they too good to be true? Let's face it, debt is stressful. Threats of court action, bailiffs, and potentially even losing your home aren't anything to be taken lightly. You may have heard of an IVA, or an individual voluntary arrangement, and that's been painted as some miracle solution for debt, but don't be fooled, the reality is not so simple. Whether an IVA is worth it depends on your circumstances and what you want. There's no one-size-fits-all solution to getting out of debt, and an IVA is definitely not an exception. In the 80s, IVAs were introduced to help people with debts relating to business insolvency, but nowadays they're way more common. In fact, they're very often the first thing that gets suggested if you want to lower your debts. But just because salespeople want you to take out an IVA doesn't mean that you should. Only a handful of people are actually eligible for IVAs, and it's only a good idea for a fraction of them. So here's the biggest question that you need to answer before you can know if an IVA is really worth it for you. The question is, do you need to protect your home from being repossessed? If you're struggling with debt, the prospect of losing your home to pay back your debt can be scary and cause sleepless nights. For many people, their home is their pride and joy, so it makes sense that they'd want to protect it from their creditors. That's where an IVA comes in. The main selling point of an IVA is that it removes the worry, ensuring that your property is legally protected and your creditors cannot come for the full value of it. However, the flip side to this is that you'll probably have to release some equity as part of the IVA, so you may have to remortgage to pay off an initial lump sum of your debt. But if keeping your house is a high priority for you and you have more than 15% equity, then an IVA could be worth a serious look at. As a side note, just because an IVA protects your home doesn't mean it's the best way to lower your debt repayments. Other debt solutions that don't protect your home may allow you to pay back less, but they won't allow you to legally protect your home from repossession. Another feature of IVAs that makes them quite popular is that it stops creditors from harassing you. For many people, especially those that are here from MoneyNerd, one of the biggest stresses that they face is constant back and forth with creditors, debt collectors and bailiffs. Debt collectors constantly write to them, call them, SMS them, and even show up at their homes to demand payment. It can be incredibly intimidating and contribute to those sleepless nights and even cause chronic stress. But an IVA can solve this. Because an IVA is a legal agreement, you'll need to get an insolvency practitioner to help you initiate it. Firstly, the insolvency practitioner will arrange all of your creditors to be represented and present in the agreement. Then they'll make sure that the IVA guarantees that none of them can contact you regarding your debt, unless you specifically specify that you want them to. For so many people, that's a huge weight lifted off their shoulders. No more daily threatening letters, random people showing up at their door. They can just focus on repaying the debt that they agreed to. So that's the two main benefits that I see of an IVA. But as I've said from the beginning, it's not all sunshine and rainbows. If you don't own a home or you don't care about your house being repossessed, then an IVA might not be the best solution for you. With that in mind, if you want to learn more about debt solutions and what might be right for you, I've got a little calculator linked in the description that will help you work out whether you qualify for a debt solution. Speaking of figuring out what's best for you leads me on to my next key reason of why an IVA might not be worth it. If your main aim isn't to protect your home or silence your creditors, then you need to seriously consider other options. For lots of people, the single most important thing for them is to become debt-free as soon as possible. Some people are willing to risk their homes being repossessed or other assets taken so they can just get the whole thing behind them and simply start again. We'll look into this in more detail in a future video, but here's the key takeaway. An IVA normally lasts 5 to 6 years. That means you'll be paying back creditors for at least 5 years. You'll be put on a very strict budget and almost all of life's luxuries will go out the window. For at least 5 years, you will have to live a very simple life. And at the end of those 5 years, you'll finally become debt-free. However, there are other debt solutions out there that can get you out of debt much faster. For example, debt relief orders and bankruptcy can allow you to achieve debt freedom in a year or less. So if speed is your aim, an IVA is certainly not the fastest way to become debt-free. As a side note, as with an IVA or any other debt solution, there's lots of caveats and traps to debt relief orders and bankruptcy, so I suggest you do plenty of research before picking a solution. When choosing a debt solution, it's also important to know your own personality. Are you able to stick to a tight budget? And if you can't, an IVA might not be right for you. As I mentioned earlier, for IVAs, you'll work with a person called an insolvency practitioner who will act as your personal guide on your journey to becoming debt-free. Your insolvency practitioner will need to look at your incomings and outgoings, and they'll create a payment plan that will make sure that you can afford to live while you repay the debt. Whilst it's very likely that you'll pay back less than you owe, you'll be expected to squeeze your living costs considerably. Essentially, your insolvency practitioner will aim to have you pay back as much as possible. For some, this means downgrading your phone package or losing internet altogether. However, if you can prove that you need something for work, like your car or internet access, then your insolvency practitioner will keep that in the final budget. But you'll certainly have to cut out other luxuries like your Netflix subscriptions and holidays. Remember, this is legally enforceable, and you will be expected to honour the spending restrictions that your insolvency practitioner puts in place. Make sure you stick to the agreement. It's not as simple as shaving off a chunk of debt. You'll be making sacrifices to ensure that you change your spending habits to afford the repayments. Remember, IVAs help thousands of people get out of debt every year, and they can prove to be a life-changing decision for many people. There's plenty of positives that can come with a new approach to escaping your debt for good, but it requires commitment and sacrifice in the long run. If you know that living on such a strict budget for 5 years is going to be too hard, then you should seriously think about other options. And there's no shame to admitting that, by the way. Living so frugally can impact your mental health and happiness, and that's arguably more important than your financial health. So now you've had a chance to explore whether an IVA is worth it for you or not, but of course I couldn't cover everything in this video. In fact, there's 3 very important reasons why you should avoid getting an IVA. I've done a specific video for that, which I'll link here, or if it's not showing there, I'll link it in the description below. But thanks for watching, and I hope it's been helpful for you. If you did find it helpful, hit the like button. If you'd like to learn more about getting out of debt, don't forget to subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.